My name's Kaitlin Bolling. I'm excited to be here this morning. This is From Audit to Action, a 4-step guide to accessibility testing. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have ever done some accessibility testing or conducted an accessibility audit on a website or a portion of the website? Okay, great. We have a lot of experienced devs in here. I am hoping, I don't have a lot of time today to show everything, but I'm hoping you'll leave this with a couple tips and tricks for a process that you can follow at your company to make your sites more accessible. A little about me, I am from the Western New York area. I used to live right down the street actually, but recently moved out to the suburbs, so I'm in Orchard Park now with my husband and my dog. I had to include my dog and my dog. Isn't helping very much. I have about 20 years of experience working in web development. I primarily focus on front end and user experience and digital accessibility. I work for a company called Alley. I'm the director of user experience development there, where I've been for almost 7 years. It's a full service digital agency. We focus on enterprise level WordPress development. And while I was there, we would occasionally have clients ask us if their site was accessible and how accessible the site is. And maybe they had questions from users, maybe they were trying to improve performance or SEO, or just trying not to get sued, which some of our clients probably are. But in any case, we realized we didn't really have a formal process for conducting an audit. We all had different levels of experience. We didn't really know what it meant to evaluate a website for accessibility. So we decided to kind of put together a task force to create a guide that we could all follow and share. We eventually broke that process out into 4 steps, which I'll go through today. And we even made Jira tickets for each of the steps, so you could easily kind of clone them into your sprints. I don't know if y'all use Jira or some kind of project management system. So let's get started on the 4 steps. Step 1, requirements gathering. So your goal in this step is to really figure out what you're testing. Make sure you know the compliance level that you're testing. Make sure the stakeholders know, so everyone is on that same page about what it is that you're going to be evaluating. So you want to identify and define the requirements needed for the audit, which could include the audit scope. So this can range from a large detailed report or something more targeted. Knowing the type of audit needed will help shape the deliverables and the scope. For example, does the whole site need an audit or just part of the site? Is there certain sections that need more attention than others? So after defining that scope, I recommend documenting the list of URLs that you're going to test. These could include all unique templates. I like to do the homepage, if you have an archive listing page, a search results page, a single post page, that sort of thing. High traffic pages are also important. Or any pages with complex interactivity or forms or videos or multimedia. Those are good things to test as well. Conformance level. So WCAG is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. They're really the standard for accessibility testing and compliance. You want to identify the conformance level and the version. So the latest version is 2.2. And we usually target AA. AAA is more tough to achieve, but that could be a requirement for your client. The lowest level is A. I tend to shoot for AA 2.2. Evaluation methods and tools. So define the tools that you plan to use, including any automated testing tools, screen reader software, and browsers and browser versions. Specific device considerations, that's good to take into account. Document any currently known areas of interest. So if there are known areas, known challenges or areas of interest, make note, and you can be more rigorous on those sections of the site. And during this step, you also want to define the deliverables and the report. So what are you going to deliver at the end of this? Step 2. So now that you know what you're testing, you have to start testing. Automated testing is really the first step. What is that? It is automated testing uses software tools to evaluate a website or application against a set of accessibility standards. Consider it your first line of defense. to quickly identify many common violations. Some pros of automated testing: it's efficient. You can scan hundreds of pages quickly, and it scales well for large websites and applications. It can easily integrate into CI/CD pipelines for continuous accessibility monitoring. It's also consistent, so it applies the same rules across your entire digital product, which can be measured and tracked over time. And there's a low barrier to entry, so many tools are free or low cost and can be run by people with limited accessibility knowledge. Couple cons: it only evaluates about 30 to 40% of all accessibility issues. It can't evaluate the quality or appropriateness of accessibility solutions. So for example, it can detect if an image has an alt text, but it can't detect if that alt text is meaningful. That would require human intervention. It also struggles with dynamic content and state changes in a more complex application. So how to conduct accessibility testing. There are a lot of tools out there that can do this for you. I recommend to choose the tools that you're most comfortable with, play around with a few. They all work a little bit differently. And I also recommend selecting at least two to give you the most comprehensive results, because it seems that even though they're consistent testing against the same standards, you might get a little bit different results with one over the other. Here's a list of a bunch that I know of anyway. There's probably a lot more out there. A lot of them are available as browser extensions. Some are also services. We are going to look at two today in particular. First is Lighthouse.
Can you go back for a second?
Sure. There'll be a PDF of the slides at the end too.
That required
So we're going to look at Google Lighthouse. A lot of you have probably used Lighthouse before. It's built right into Chrome DevTools, so it's free, it's convenient, it's easy. It performs performance audits as well as SEO audits in addition to accessibility. A couple things to know about Lighthouse and how it scores accessibility. It is the overall score is a weighted average of all the audits, and weighting is based on the ACTS user impact assessment. So ACTS is a suite of accessibility testing tools by DQ Systems. They are a leading provider of digital accessibility solutions, and each accessibility audit is a pass or a fail. So unlike the performance audits, a page doesn't get points for partially passing. For example, if some buttons on a page have accessible names but others don't, the page gets a 0 for that audit. And I have a link here for more on how that score is calculated if you're interested. The next one I'm going to show is the SiteImprove Accessibility Checker. This one is also available as browser extension. It provides a score that's a measure of how well the page performs against WCAG success criteria, categorized by level A, AA, or AAA compliance. Demo time. I'm attempting a live demo, so bear with me. All right, so let's do some automated testing. This site is Plum Guide. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's a lot like Airbnb. I haven't personally used it, but it has like the right amount of accessibility violations to fit to this topic. So I'm going to demo it. It is supposed to be like a curated Airbnb. I don't know if it is, but I'll go ahead and pop open DevTools and run a Lighthouse audit. I'm going to only select accessibility. I do recommend taking a look at all of the other categories because everything kind of goes together, but we'll just look at accessibility right now. I'm just going to look at desktop, and the mode is navigation. I do recommend looking at both mobile and desktop when you do this. All right, that went pretty quickly. 79, not terrible, not great, could be better. A 100 score for Google Lighthouse is definitely achievable, and that is the baseline that I recommend if you can get there. Some things are going to be out of your control, especially when you're dealing with ads or third-party integrations and iframes. But really, if you have control over the source code of the entirety of your website, I recommend aiming for a 100 there. So Lighthouse shows you a couple areas that have violations here. ARIA attributes don't have valid values. Buttons do not have an accessible name. You can see these little forward-backwards buttons here don't have an accessible name. user scalable equals no is used in the meta name equals viewport element, or the maximum scale attribute is less than 5. This particular site is trying to disallow zooming. No, don't do that.
Don't do what?
Disallow zooming. So they have a maximum scale set of 1.0. Most modern browsers override that. So if I zoom in here, you can see it is in fact zooming. So just don't include that anymore. Lists do not contain only li elements, and heading elements are not in sequentially descending order. So for any of these violations, you can go ahead and click. It gives you a little overview of what that means. It gives you a screenshot of where that violation is occurring, and it gives you the element that I can click on and be taken into the elements panel, and I can see on the page where that violation is occurring. It also gives you this little learn more link, which is pretty helpful. So this goes to DQ University, tells you what the violation is. It gives you a user impact score. So I'll review these at the end, but this one is a moderate. This is important when you're doing an audit to help you categorize and prioritize your violations. So a moderate one should definitely be fixed, but it is kind of third on the list. The first one is critical. Those should be fixed first. But it also lets you know how you solve this problem. So in this case, heading levels are not hierarchical. They are jumping an element. Why is this a problem? Well, first it tells you how to fix. This why it matters section is nice. This lets you know how it is actually impacting users. So it explains the underlying purpose of headers is to convey the structure of the page. For sighted users, the same purpose is achieved using different font sizes. But that's not helpful for users of screen readers. So if you're using the site with a screen reader, you have limited visibility, you want those headings to be in sequential order, especially if you're navigating the site by headings. So that is helpful. As you encounter these violations, track them, write them down. Write down what they are, write down where they're occurring, take screenshots, take videos if you have to, write down the severity level. This will all be consolidated into a final report. I chose the heading elements to show because I also wanted to plug an extension called Headings Map, which is a Google Chrome extension that I really like because it's really simple, it's really easy, it does one thing, it shows you your heading hierarchy on the site. You can see I have an H1 up here, great, H2, great, H2, great. Then it jumps to H4, and this was the violation that Lighthouse detected. And that is why this is in red over here, because it's out of order. So that should really be in H3. The rest of these are in order. I would argue, though, that these footer headings should be in H3 as well. All right, so that is Lighthouse. The next one I wanted to show is the SiteImprove accessibility checker. So this is what this one looks like. It's a little pop-up. You can also go to the site, I think, and enter the URL, and it will do this all asynchronously and send you a report, which is helpful. But this little pop-up, oh, the pop-up's not showing. Sorry. There we go. As soon as you hit that extension, this pop-up shows, and this one's nice because it gives you AAA criteria, A criteria, AA criteria. You can filter that over here. If you don't need to conform to AAA, for example, you can just set A and AA. You can also see that they suggest some authoring practices and accessibility best practices, so those aren't necessarily WCAG violations, but they are best practices. I'm going to cancel that. Similarly to Lighthouse, it lets you know where this issue is happening. So page zoom is restricted, so Lighthouse caught that one as well. Headings are not structured. That's actually a best practice. Color contrast does not meet requirement. So it has featured in, oh, right there. That color does not meet the contrast ratio for AAA setting. It did catch one color contrast for AA as well that Lighthouse did not show. And that is for these numbers. So that does not meet the criteria either for proper color contrast ratios. So again, you want to track all of these issues that are appearing to the conformance level that you're going for, and make sure that you understand where they're occurring and some suggested remediation fixes. Just a quick note too, I have these available as extensions. I'm running this in incognito mode. I do recommend doing that. I think to get a good view of your performance, you shouldn't necessarily always run in incognito because your users are not always running in incognito. But for accessibility, I like to do that just so any other browser extensions don't interfere with your results. So I think that is a good practice. You might wonder how to get these extensions to appear in incognito if you haven't done that before. If you click this Manage Extensions button, and go to any of the extensions you have. Sorry?
It's not showing it.
Oh, it's not showing. Jeez. It popped up in a not incognito mode. Popped up in this window. If you go to any details of any of your extensions, you can allow this in incognito. So I like to keep that list pretty limited, but that is how I'm getting these two to show. Okay, let's go back. Get out of here. Let me, before we go into the next step, there's a couple things I want to show in DevTools. So, just another few tips and tricks. When you're looking at a website, when you're looking at the elements panel, there's this little accessibility symbol over here in the top right. That will show you the accessibility tree. And this is really nice because you can see what all of the elements are, and you can see if they have a name. So, for example, we have a banner, it's labeled banner. We have a button, the button's name is Plum Guide. It is focusable. Great, makes sense. If we go down, for example, right here, we remember this little icon was flagged by Lighthouse for not having an accessible name. And you can see that that's true. So this is a button that's empty. It doesn't have an accessible name there. It is focusable. There's an image there. The image doesn't have any name either. So there's no alt text, there's no ARIA title, there's no ARIA label. So that's something that needs to be fixed. And if I switch out of the accessibility tree mode, you'll see it's
a question since you just mentioned title and alt.
Yeah.
What's the difference between an alt tag and a title tag?
Well, an alt tag would be on an image. Title tag would be on, in this case, an SVG.
Okay, but
so they're different
when
attributes.
you have an image in WordPress, it gives you fields for both.
Title shouldn't be on an image, I don't think.
Okay, so you don't need that. Just
No,
the alt. Just the alt.
Just the alt. Yep. Yep. So this is an icon button, which you see a lot. It's a common pattern. It's got an SVG inside of a button element. A couple ways to handle this. You can add text. So just add previous or whatever whatever text you want. You can hide that text to cited users with a screen reader only utility class. A lot of frameworks have this. WordPress has it built in. Screen reader text is the class. SR only is another class. I know Bootstrap has. So that keeps the text in the DOM, but it hides it off the screen. Then I would probably put an ARIA hidden attribute on this SVG because this SVG is solely decorative. It doesn't inform the user of what its purpose is if you're looking at it through a screen reader. So if you put an ARIA hidden on the SVG, screen reader only text inside the button, the screen reader will ignore that image and just give you the text, which is really what you want. You could also give it a title attribute to the SVG. You could also give an ARIA title, or ARIA label, sorry, to the button. All of those are acceptable. Next thing I wanted to show is the accessibility panel down here. The accessibility tree used to live in here. It now is this icon in the upper right, but this also shows you some additional ARIA attributes, which is helpful. And lastly, if you open up the command palette, Command-Shift-P in DevTools, you'll get the command palette. There's a couple things that you can emulate. If I type in the word emulate, you can emulate CSS prefers color scheme dark or light. That's really helpful if you don't want to go into your system settings and change it from light to dark to test a light and dark mode. There's a bunch of other ones. Prefers reduce motion. I use that one a lot. So if you have a lot of animation on your site, you want to respect this prefers reduce motion user preference. There are a lot of color contrast emulations as well, in addition to blurred vision, that sort of thing. So no red, you can see what the site looks like for users that might have a red color blindness. Don't rely on color to convey meaning to your users, especially error and success indicators. If the only difference is red or green, include some text, include an icon, include something other than just color. We'll turn that off. Do not emulate. Okay. On to step 4. I'm sorry, step 3. Manual testing. So we just saw automated testing. What is manual testing? Well, this involves human evaluators. So humans are directly interacting with your products to identify accessibility barriers that automated tools can't detect. This process requires testers to simulate the experience of users with disabilities by using various assistive technologies. Some pros. It identifies issues that automated tools cannot detect, like we talked about. That's 60 to 70% of accessibility issues. It evaluates the actual user experience rather than just code compliance, and it identifies problems better with dynamic content and state changes. And some cons. It is time intensive and resource demanding, so it takes a while. And it's subject to human error and inconsistency between testers. So it's not something that can be done as quickly, as efficiently as automated testing. But it's important because, as we learned, it detects most of the accessibility issues. First thing you want to do is keyboard test. So assuming someone doesn't have access to a mouse, has limited motor control, is solely using a keyboard to navigate your website, can all of the content be accessible? Can they reach everything? Can they perform every action that they need to take? A couple standard keyboard controls that I'll show. Tab, we use the tab key to shift, to move forward through interactive elements. Shift and tab will move you backwards. The enter or the space button activates menus and links. Arrow keys, sometimes you can tab to a menu, for example, an arrow, left, right, up, down. And escape for closing dialogues or canceling actions. A couple considerations when you're going through keyboard testing. You want to look for focus visibility. So is it always clear which element has the keyboard focus? The tab order, does the navigation sequence follow a logical and predictable path? Keyboard traps, are there any places where you can't tab away from an element? So your keyboard's stuck. I'm going to show one of those. Skip links. So are there mechanisms available to bypass your repetitive navigation? According to the WebAIM Millions report, 13.7% of homepages had a skip link present, but 1 out of every 10 were broken. So they either were hidden in a way that made them inaccessible completely, or they were linking to something that didn't exist on the page. So make sure a skip link is there and test it. Click it, make sure it goes somewhere. Access to all functionality. Can every feature be used without a mouse? Custom widgets, So complex components like drop-downs and date pickers, do those work? Modal dialogues, can you properly enter, use, and exit a modal window? Hidden content, so something like accordions, can those be expanded and opened and closed? And focus management, so does the focus move appropriately when content changes? Demo time again. So I'm going to navigate this with a keyboard and just see how it looks. I hit tab, I'm focused on the logo. You can see it has a pretty good focus state. I know where I am. Tab again. Become host became focused. The focus state could probably be better. It's not really obvious where I am right now. This is moving as I would expect it to. Now I jump down to an input. I'm going to tab again, and that opens it. That might be expected. I was not quite expecting that, but I'm going to use the arrows here. I can move up and down, and I can select a location. I did that by hitting enter. Now it threw me over to the next input, but I've lost my focus. I don't know where my focus is. I'm going to hit tab, tab again, tab again, tab again, tab again. Oh, there I am. Focus is down here on exact dates. I can tab through those. I can shift tab to move backwards. That all works. Tab again, focus is lost again. Don't know where I am until I get down there. So this looks like a loop. So I'm gonna hit escape. Nothing happens. Now I'm stuck. So this is a keyboard trap. So it automatically put focus into this modal window. I can't see where my focus is, and I can't close it. I also can't really select the dates because I have no idea how. So a little trick that I learned recently, if I go to my console, if I type this little I, or hit this little eyeball up here, create live expression, document.activeElement will show you where your focus is. So if I go back here and I start tabbing, I can see my focus is actually on search specific dates. You just can't tell. Now I can move my arrow key back and forth and see that this is activating that toggle. If I hit tab again, still visually I don't know where I am, but if I look at the element, it's actually a radio button right there. Tab again. Oops, let's go back and arrow. Yeah, so I can arrow through these. So that works pretty well. Tab again, it goes to this, get this higher on the screen, goes to travel in. Tab again goes to the button. Tab again goes back up to search specific dates. So there's actually no way to get into this component to select anything, to select the appropriate month that I would want. And if I inspect that, it looks like it's a label. There's an input inside of that, but it's hidden. And if I look at the styles, it's got a display note on it. So that's invisible to the keyboard, it's not focusable. It's also invisible to screen readers. If I toggle that back on, now it has appropriate focus and I can actually select something. So make sure, especially with the fancy checkboxes, that you're making those accessible. Make them focusable, give them a proper label, allow users to select them. If I jump down here, the rest of the page actually looks pretty good. It navigates through links as I would expect, shows me a proper focus state. So those are all things I would look for. Oh, accordions. Let's test the accordions. Tab is going through them. If I hit enter, it properly opens. Tab again, I can go through all the links. So that works pretty well. So good job on the accordions. Okay. Not so good on the main feature of your site, which is searching for where you might want to stay. So this whole form needs some work to make it keyboard accessible. All right, screen reader testing. How many of you have used a screen reader before? Or seen one being used? Cool, so a lot of you. It's amazing watching people that use it regularly actually use it. I don't know, I can't do it. They fly through websites, it's incredible. Here are a few common screen readers that I know of. JAWS and NVDA are really popular on Windows, VoiceOver on the Mac, TalkBack on Android, and Orca on Linux. And I do have a link here to some common screen reader combinations. I'm going to be demonstrating VoiceOver. It's built into the Mac. Couple things about it. It works best in Safari, so I will show it on Safari. There's a lot of settings that you can kind of fiddle with and tinker with in your settings, in your system preferences in the VoiceOver utility. Start it up with Command F5. And I linked a couple cheat sheets here. The first is DQ's kind of quick reference for Mac OS keyboard commands. They also have one for iOS. I'll just show the basics. So your VoiceOver key is labeled here as VO. That is typically Control and Option, or caps lock, and you can set that in your preference as well if you wanted to change that. So you're going to be hitting that VoiceOver plus all of these other keys in order to navigate through the site with a screen reader. This is another cheat sheet I found recently that I thought was pretty cool. This is on Apple's website. It shows you, here's your caps lock key, your control key, your option key. Those are your activation keys. You toggle those. I won't get into all of them today. But let's do a quick demo in Safari. Unfortunately. Safari's not bad. It's getting better. All right. So really your goal with Screen Reader is to make sure everything is as optimized as possible, or at least comprehensible, logical. Just like you would want a user to perform all of the actions of your site with just a keyboard, they also should be able to do so with just a screen reader. Command F5 to start it up.
VoiceOver on Safari. Learn about Plum Guide, vertical line Plum Guide, window. Learn about Plum Guide, vertical line Plum Guide, application, heading, mirror or extent.
It's a lot, right?
The top 1% of curated VoiceOver off.
I realized that I need to add some windows here for you to see some things. Give me one sec. All right, bear with me.
VoiceOver on application. Control center, system screen mirroring, dim.
That's not what I wanted to do. All right, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it, but there is a little dialog pop-up that appears to read the text to you, so it's like a closed captioning.
VoiceOver off.
But you can at least hear it.
VoiceOver on Safari. Learn about Plum Guide, vertical line Plum Guide. Enter your email address, edit text, blank, closing. Duh.
Okay.
You are currently on a heading level 1.
I'm going to hit my VoiceOver key and A to just start reading so you can see what this looks like. And I'm actually on the About Us page, I'm not on the home page, just because it's a little more easy to follow than a complicated form.
Heading Level 1. The top 1% of curated vacation rentals worldwide. Image. Plum Guide. Official selection. Empty group. Heading Level 1. Plum Guide is the world's leading, curated, home collection. 3 items. Plum Guide is the world's leading, curated, home collection. Here's why. Plum Guide has redefined the vacation rental landscape. We are the only platform that meticulously curates
Control will pause that. So it just starts reading, and in Safari it does actually highlight the section. I can't mirror that, but it is showing you what it's reading at the time. A lot of VoiceOver users use what's called the rotor.
Landmarks menu.
Which, I gotta figure out how to mirror this.
Application. Control Center. VoiceOver off.
It only lets me add windows, which I don't
Can't you just say mirror entire screen?
have. No. I think I can if I stop mirroring. Oh, there we go. Yes. Okay. Oops. Let's start it back up.
VoiceOver on Safari. Learn about Plum Guide vertical line Plum Guide. Enter
see
your
that
email
little pop-up
address.
now.
Window. Edit text. Blank. Has keyboard focus. Watts. You are currently on a selectable text. Curated
Back up.
vacation. You are currently on
All right, I'm gonna hit the VoiceOver key and you.
landmarks menu.
This is called the rotor. So this is how a lot of people will navigate a site. It kind of lets you jump around. So this is why it's important to structure your content appropriately. So you have 3 landmarks here, the banner, the main, and the content information. So I can easily jump to main, for example.
Main. Heading level 1. The top 1% of
Also,
landmarks menu.
if I hit the left and right arrow keys,
Frames menu.
I can go through a couple different things.
Window spots menu. Links menu.
Links is an important one too. So when it tells you a link doesn't, or a button doesn't have an accessible name, or a link doesn't have an accessible name, it won't show up here. Also, this is why it's important to not have something like click here or learn more, because if you're navigating your links menu this way, you have no context. So you want to add some context to your links when you're labeling them.
AI and can AI are verdict speak to LinkedIn.
So I can navigate that way.
Headings menu.
Another reason why heading hierarchy is important if you're navigating by headings. Also, just a good idea to structure your content appropriately. So that's helpful for performance, it's helpful for SEO, it's helpful for accessibility. Just put things in a logical order.
Form controls menu.
You can jump to form controls,
Landmarks menu.
back to landmarks. So those are just a few ways. I'm gonna stop.
No items in. Land closing. Landmarks VoiceOver off.
There we go, okay. Just a few little shortcuts that I wanted to demonstrate, but your goal is really to read through that, make sure everything makes sense, make sure that everything has an appropriate label, make sure your images have alt text that convey appropriate meaning, track anything that doesn't. Back to our guide here. Okay, so now you've done all of your testing, you've done all your requirements gathering, it's time to form your report. You want to compile all of your testing results into a report that summarizes findings, it details violations, and suggests remediation strategies. And the goal here is to make remediation as easy as possible. The final deliverable should be thorough, but easy to understand, and really help inform the prioritization of any remediation strategies. I do have a suggested report format here. This might vary completely depending on your needs, but table of contents, an introduction, what this is, who it's meant for. Violation snapshot, this is kind of optional, but it might be nice to see all of your violations by severity, by conformance level. Also defect clusters, so if there's anything that you might be able to resolve that'll give you the most bang for your buck, that's a good thing to prioritize. For example, if there's a critical violation in your header, and that header appears on every single page of your site, do that first. That's gonna help every page. Same as footer, so some of the global elements, or maybe you know that one of your branding colors doesn't meet color contrast ratios. Figure out a close option that does and solve some of those contrast issues first. Then you want some background, so these are some of the things you identified in your requirements. Gathering steps, so pages tested, platforms and tools, the conformance levels you tested too, and any exceptions. And then your violations, so a detailed report of all of those violations that you encountered. Here's this violation form template that we use. Yours might look different, but just a couple of things. For each violation, we give it a unique ID. This is easy for referencing later if you need to. General description of the violation, the pages or the templates where it appears, the relevant success criteria that you're evaluating it on, or that it violates, details about the specific violation, the severity level, so the degree of impact that we talked about earlier, moderate, severe, critical. The impact, this one I think is important. So how this violation can affect users with disability. So sure, you might want to check the box, but what does it actually mean? How is it making your site more accessible for people? And then there's suggestions for resolving the violation. So the degrees of impact. Critical is the first, most serious one. It means content is totally blocked for individuals with disabilities. Until a solution is implemented, content will be completely inaccessible, making the organization highly vulnerable to legal action. Remediation should be a top priority. The next one is serious. So this results in serious barriers. So content might not be completely inaccessible, but there's some serious barriers there. Moderate will result in some barriers for individuals. And minor, it's still considered an issue. And for a page to be considered fully compliant, it does still need to be resolved, but it has less of an impact on users. Couple general tips when you're doing this. Document violations as you go, include screenshots, include videos. Violations should be grouped so that each violation should only be reported once, along with notes on where it appears. So if color contrast appears on every page of your site, you only need to include that once. If there's multiple ways to solve something, suggest the least disruptive one. And consider taking a course. DQ University offers a lot of courses to help fill in any gaps and refine your skills. That's a lot of tedious work, I know. It takes a long time to conduct these audits, write that report. I figured that there's probably auditing software out there that makes this easier. There is. I have not used these, but I wanted to include them. We're putting everything in a spreadsheet, we're putting everything in a Google Doc, we're making these reports manually. Some of these I think can probably help. Try them out, see if they work. So, we talked about requirements gathering, we talked about automated testing, we talked about manual testing, and we talked about reporting. One thing we didn't talk about was user testing. This is not included in our 4-step process, but I think it's probably one of the most important. It's also the most expensive and time-consuming, and not a lot of clients have those resources. I do think watching a user actually interact with your site for 5 minutes will give you more information than this report probably will. So I do highly recommend conducting actual user testing with your users, especially those with disabilities. You'll learn a lot from that. So I didn't go into it today, but I wanted to mention it. And that is all. I have slides available down here. This QR code goes to a PDF if you want a PDF of the slides.